guys, this is Kiri with the blog healthfullyrootedhome.com, where I talk about clean cooking, non-toxic living, and an organized home. And today I am going to talk to you guys about 3 make-ahead Dutch oven meals. My first meal is my jambalaya recipe with my homemade Creole seasoning. And this recipe is actually on my blog, so I'll put that in the description below so that you can go print that recipe off. My next recipe is an egg roll in a bowl. And that's a fun recipe. I'll leave that in the description below. And then my third recipe is my turkey skillet, and that recipe is actually in my fall and winter meal plan, which I will link for you below. Okay, so for the jambalaya, all I did was I soaked some rice overnight, and then I heated some oil in my Dutch oven over medium heat, and I put in some chicken sausage and I cooked that until it was just brown, and then I added my vegetables. So I used a red bell pepper, a green bell pepper, a yellow onion, and some celery, and I added all of that in with just directly into the Dutch oven with the meat. Once the vegetables were starting to get just a little bit soft, I added in about half of the Creole seasoning that I made. And then I added the shrimp, and I just cooked the shrimp until they were pink. That doesn't take a lot of time, and you don't want overcooked shrimp. And then I took all of that out and I put it in just a separate big bowl, and I started to cook the rice. So to cook the rice, I just put some bone broth and the rice in that same Dutch oven with 1 jar of crushed tomatoes and then 1 jar of tomato paste, and then I let that simmer over high heat for about 15 minutes, and then I turned the burner off, kept the lid on, and I let that simmer for another 15 minutes. Once the rice was done cooking, I took the lid off, I put the other half of the Creole seasoning in there. I stirred it all up, and then I put the lid back on and I simmered that for another 10 or 15 minutes or so. And it was so delicious. So for this recipe, you can do what I did, and I just made it ahead so that we could have it for lunches the next day. But you could also make it ahead and freeze it. So what you would do in order to freeze this jambalaya is just put it in either a glass airtight container and store it in the freezer, or just put it in a gallon Ziploc freezer bag. I suggest maybe double bagging it to prevent freezer burn, and then storing those in the freezer for up to 3 months. And then to reheat, you can just pour your jambalaya into your Dutch oven and reheat it that way, and just keep the Dutch oven on like low to medium heat, and maybe add a little bit of water so that it doesn't like re-cook, and so that it just kind of heats it up. So the next dish I made was my egg roll in a bowl. It's seriously the easiest recipe ever. I think it takes about 10 minutes of hands-on time, and I cooked it all in a Dutch oven. So first what I'm doing here is just making the sauce for this dish. So I just used some coconut aminos, sesame oil, melted coconut oil, and then I put in some rice vinegar, garlic cloves, ginger, and then some salt and pepper. And then I just whisked it all up and set that aside for now. And then I got started on browning my meat. And so all you do is put some oil in a Dutch oven. I used coconut oil for this just because I already had it out. And I browned up the ground turkey. You could also use ground pork or ground beef, but I just wanted something a little leaner for this dish, so I used some ground turkey. All right, and then the next step is once the turkey is browned up, add some diced onion. And I just used a yellow onion for this recipe. And stir it all up and make sure the onion kind of gets to the point where it's starting to soften. And then I'm going to be honest, I lost a lot of footage for this recipe. I'm so sorry, but all I did after that was put in the cabbage and carrots, which for that I just used some packaged coleslaw mix and I just dumped it in with the meat and onions and put in my sauce, mixed it all up and cooked that on high for like 5 minutes. And then I dished it up and then I just packaged the rest in a glass container and then we stored that for lunches for the next day in the fridge. You could also freeze this recipe, but before freezing, when you're freezing, I would not put the cabbage and carrots in. I would save that for after you defrost the meat and onions and then put those in after. But this dish turned out to be so good. It's just such a simple recipe, and I love any recipe that you can just dump into a Dutch oven and cook it all in one pot and have it ready in like 15 minutes. And I just topped it with some green onions, and that was it. I'll leave this recipe in the link below. You guys, this turkey skillet is so easy. Basically, you just brown the turkey, and then you toss in the diced sweet potatoes. I typically use just like orange sweet potatoes, but I had purple this time, so I used purple. It made it look kind of cool. I just put those in the Dutch oven, and then I put the lid on the Dutch oven until the potatoes got just like slightly soft. And I seasoned it with cumin and chili powder, a little salt and pepper. Once the potatoes were softened, I added some diced yellow onion, a bunch of garlic, and stirred that all up. And then I topped it with a bunch of cheddar cheese and cilantro. So this is such an easy, simple, and quick meal. It's actually one of my husband's favorite meals. Again, I just cooked enough to use for dinner that night, and then we had it for lunch the next day. But you can absolutely freeze this too. I would just freeze it without the cheddar cheese and the cilantro. These meals are great whether you're trying to just stock up and make some easy button meals for you and your family, or great to bring a new mom, or great to bring family around the holiday times. Whatever the reason, these meals are so delicious, they're healthy, and they're easy. So be sure to check out the description box below to get those recipes. And then if you want to learn how to create a rotating meal plan, then just click to this next video. And thank you so much for watching, you guys. My name is Kiri with the blog healthfullyrootedhome.com, where I talk about clean cooking, non-toxic living, and an organized home.